The Gates of Fear. Welcome back to the dark side of true crime. Hit that subscribe button before you enter Wolston Correctional Centre, because once you're in, there's no coming out the same. It was 3:17 a.m. when the Queensland Police finally cornered Dean McCarthy. His name had dominated headlines for weeks. The man who orchestrated one of Brisbane's most violent armoured truck robberies in modern Australian history. 3 guards were left bleeding on the asphalt that night, the truck emptied of nearly $6 million in unmarked bills, and the getaway had been flawless, until greed tore the crew apart. McCarthy wasn't a man of panic. When police raided the coastal safe house, he didn't run. He sat on the couch, cigarette in hand, half a smirk frozen under the flashing red and blue lights. "Took you long enough," he said, as if the entire city's manhunt was a joke. But Dean knew where he was headed. Wolston Prison, Australia's most feared correctional facility, where even the walls seemed to breathe menace. Built on the outskirts of Brisbane, Wolston was a concrete labyrinth of isolation cells, rumor, and blood-soaked legends. It was said that if a man didn't lose his mind inside Wolston, he'd come out a different kind of monster. When the gates clanged shut behind him, Dean was swallowed by a silence so heavy it felt alive. The guards didn't look him in the eye. The other inmates, lifers, enforcers, and broken souls, watched him like hyenas scenting new prey. Word spread fast. The armored truck kingpin's here. Inside, the air reeked of sweat, bleach, and fear. Dean was thrown into Unit 7, the block rumored to house the prison's most unpredictable inmates, men who followed no rules, not even the guards. Among them was Ray the Dog Morrison, a towering figure who ran Wolston's underground economy. Drugs, smuggled phones, stolen meals, everything passed through his invisible network. The first night, Dean learned the rule that wasn't written anywhere. You either pay or you disappear. By day 3, his food tray came half empty. His bedding was soaked with mop water. His name was scratched into the bathroom wall with the words "Dead by Friday." But Dean wasn't new to power games. In his world, intimidation was just another form of communication. He observed. He calculated. And then he struck, not with fists, but with strategy. He noticed something no one else cared about: the prison kitchen. It wasn't just where food was made, it was where contraband moved. Coffee tins, flour bags, even sacks of potatoes carried more than what they seemed. Dean volunteered for kitchen duty. The guards laughed. The kingpin's gonna wash dishes now. But by the end of the week, he'd memorized every delivery route, every back door, every guard rotation. He found where the drugs entered, who handled the cash, and who turned a blind eye. Wolston's food was infamous: gray meat, watery beans, and bread so stale it could break teeth. But Dean saw opportunity. He started trading favors for extra portions, then trading portions for information. Soon, he wasn't just surviving. He was feeding the power structure. Literally. Ray the dog noticed. He summoned Dean one night in the rec yard, under the flickering floodlights. "You're messing with my business," Ray growled. Dean smiled. "No, mate," he said calmly. "I'm expanding it." That single sentence marked the beginning of Wolston's quiet revolution. Dean started re-engineering the prison's black market, turning meals into currency. He built alliances with inmates through hunger and loyalty, offering something everyone wanted: a taste of normalcy in hell. By the 3rd month, the guards whispered his name. The warden noticed unusual calm in Unit 7. But it wasn't peace, it was control. Dean had turned chaos into a system, and he was sitting at the top of it. Then came the first sign that his empire wasn't invisible anymore. A transfer request appeared on his file: inmate relocation. No reason given. The paperwork was unsigned, yet approved. The next morning, a guard found a knife hidden beneath Dean's pillow. A setup. He was dragged into solitary confinement, screaming his innocence. But the strange thing was, Dean didn't panic. Because during that brutal march down the corridor, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A familiar symbol carved into the wall outside his cell, a small wolf's head, the same insignia tattooed on Ray Morrison's arm. But Ray hadn't been seen for days. Word around the block was he'd been sent to the infirmary after a fight. No one had seen him since. Dean sat in the darkness of solitary, staring at that symbol scratched deep into the concrete. The guards didn't know who put it there, but Dean did. Someone inside Wolston was rewriting the power game, and they wanted him out of the way. As the light from the corridor flickered once, then went black, Dean heard a faint scrape at the door. A folded note slid through the slot. He unfolded it slowly. Only 4 words were written in shaky handwriting. "They're coming for you." And as the sound of footsteps echoed toward his cell, Dean realized surviving Wolston wasn't about power anymore. It was about staying alive long enough to find out who really ran the prison. The king of Wolston. Dean McCarthy hadn't slept in 48 hours. The note, "They're coming for you," played over and over in his mind like a broken record. Inside solitary confinement, the silence was worse than any beating. You could hear your thoughts eating you alive. He'd seen that wolf's head symbol before. It wasn't just Ray the dog Morrison's tattoo. It was the mark of an older network, a shadow syndicate that predated Ray's control of Wolston Prison. Some called it the Circle, a group of inmates who secretly ran the black market from inside and outside the walls. Every major prison in Australia had one. Dean thought he understood power, but the Circle was something else. Invisible, untouchable. On the 4th day, a guard opened the slot. "McCarthy," he grunted, "Warden wants to see you." Dean smirked, though his heart was pounding. "What, am I getting promoted?" The guard didn't answer. Inside the warden's office, sunlight streamed through the reinforced glass, cutting through the dust. Warden Keller sat behind a desk covered in files, his expression cold and unreadable. "Mr. McCarthy," Keller began, "someone out there doesn't like you." Dean leaned back. "That narrows it down to about everyone." Keller didn't smile. He slid a photo across the desk. It was Ray Morrison, face down, lifeless, blood staining the concrete floor of the shower block. The wolf's head tattoo was still visible on his shoulder. "Found him 2 nights ago," Keller said. "No witnesses. No weapon." Dean stared at the photo, his jaw tight. "You think I did that?" Keller tilted his head. "Should I?" Dean said nothing, because behind that cold stare, he was putting it all together. Ray wasn't just murdered, he was silenced. And whoever killed him was now sending messages through symbols, through whispers, through food. That night, back in Unit 7, the balance of power shifted. Ray was gone, and Wolston's underworld needed a new ruler. The men who used to follow the dog now looked to Dean, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. And Dean? He didn't want the crown. But he knew if he didn't take it, someone else would, someone worse. So he played his part. He ordered double meal portions for his allies. He fixed the trades, made deals, and kept the guards distracted. Slowly, the black market came back to life. But instead of drugs and phones, Dean dealt in something purer, food. The irony wasn't lost on him. In a place where people killed for a cigarette or a spoon of sugar, he was running the prison using powdered potatoes and soup packets. He created an economy so stable even the guards turned a blind eye because the violence stopped. Wolston had become quiet, too quiet. Then came the incident. A kitchen worker, a kid named Benny, in for car theft, was found unconscious behind the freezer, frostbite creeping up his fingers. On the wall above him was another wolf's head symbol, drawn in what looked like rust or blood. Dean knew it wasn't random. It was a message, a warning. Someone wanted him to know the circle wasn't dead. It was reawakening, and they didn't like that he'd stolen their influence. Days turned to weeks. Dean barely slept, moving like a ghost through the prison corridors. Every meal served, every glance exchanged felt like a setup. Then one evening, while delivering rations to the guard station, he caught something strange. A new inmate list left open on the clipboard. Half the names were crossed out. But one caught his eye. Declan Frost. That name hit him like a hammer. Declan Frost, the man he once called partner. The man who betrayed him during the armored truck heist. The reason he got caught. Declan was being transferred to Wolston. Dean felt his pulse quicken. "No," he whispered. "That can't be right." It was right. 2 days later, when the new arrivals marched through the gates, Dean stood at the railing on the second tier, staring down as the buses unloaded. And there he was, Declan Frost. Same sharp jawline, same smirk. But something was different. The swagger was gone. The man looked hollow, like he'd already been broken before even stepping inside. Their eyes met. Time froze. For years, Dean had dreamed of this moment, the chance to confront the man who betrayed him, who sold him out to the cops for a slice of the money. But something in Declan's stare made Dean hesitate. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. That night, Declan approached Dean's cell quietly. "I didn't set you up," he said. Dean laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe that?" "I swear to you," Declan said. "I didn't call the cops. Someone else did. Someone inside our crew." "Who?" Dean demanded. Declan's voice shook. "They called themselves the Circle." The air turned to ice. The pieces were falling into place. The prison symbols, Ray's death, the note, the silence. It was all connected to the same shadow group that had haunted Wolston for years. But before Declan could say more, the lights cut out. Total darkness. Then, a scream echoed down the corridor. Metal clanged. Guards shouted. When the lights flickered back on, Declan Frost was gone. All that remained was a smear of blood on the floor, and another wolf's head drawn in it. Dean stood frozen, heart pounding. The Circle had made their move. They were inside Wolston. And this time, they weren't just coming for control. They were coming for him. The final code of Wolston. The air inside Wolston Prison was colder than ever. You could feel it in your bones, a tension that clung to every echoing footstep down the concrete halls. The day after Declan Frost vanished, the prison went into lockdown. No one in or out. Dean McCarthy sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the small wolf's head symbol someone had carved into the wall overnight. It hadn't been there the night before. He wasn't paranoid anymore. He was hunted. Rumors spread fast. Some said Declan escaped through a tunnel. Others swore the guards dragged him away for interrogation. But Dean knew better. Declan didn't escape. He was erased. The Circle was cleaning house. And now Dean had a choice. Keep playing the role of Wolston's quiet king, or burn the whole system down before they buried him too. The next morning, Warden Keller called a meeting in the chapel. Every inmate sat in tense silence as Keller took the podium, flanked by armed guards. "Last night," Keller began, "one of our inmates went missing. Until we get answers, no one's moving anywhere without my say-so." Dean watched from the back row. The warden's voice was steady, but his hands trembled. He was afraid, and that told Dean everything he needed to know. Keller wasn't just the warden. He was involved. When the meeting ended, Dean slipped a note under Keller's office door. "We both know who's running Wolston. Meet me after lights out." That night, the prison was dead silent. Dean moved like a shadow through the corridors, his steps muffled by the hum of flickering fluorescent lights. When he reached Keller's office, the door was already unlocked. Inside, Keller sat at his desk, a half-empty glass of whiskey beside a folder stamped confidential. He didn't look surprised to see Dean. "I figured you'd come," Keller said quietly. "You've been working for them, haven't you?" Dean asked. Keller sighed. "Everyone works for someone, McCarthy. You think I wanted this job? You think I control anything here?" He opened the folder and pushed it across the desk. Inside were photos, aerial shots of the prison, coded letters, bank transactions. "The Circle isn't just in Wolston," Keller said. "They're in 3 other facilities. They control the flow of money, drugs, guards, and even transfers. They built this place to look like a prison. But it's really a factory for influence." Dean flipped through the documents. "So who's at the top?" Keller hesitated, then whispered, "You won't believe it." Before he could say another word, the office window exploded inward. A bullet tore through the air, shattering the whiskey glass. Keller fell back, blood blooming across his shirt. Dean hit the floor as alarms blared. Smoke filled the room. The file burst into flames. He crawled toward Keller, who was still breathing weakly. "Who did this?" Dean shouted. Keller coughed, his voice barely audible. You were never supposed to survive the transfer. You were supposed to replace him." "Replace who?" Dean demanded. The leader, Keller rasped. Ray Morrison wasn't the top. He was just a face. The real leader is one of the guards. And with that, Keller's head fell sideways. Dean grabbed what was left of the file and ran. The riot started minutes later. Smoke, shouting, chaos. Prisoners broke through doors. Guards scrambled for cover. It was the perfect distraction. Too perfect. Dean knew this wasn't random. The circle was flushing him out. He made his way through the east block toward the kitchens, his old stronghold. When he pushed open the door, someone was waiting for him. It was Officer Grant, one of the longest-serving guards at Wolston. Calm, clean-shaven, always the first to show up, always the last to leave. "Drop the papers, McCarthy," Grant said. His tone was flat, almost mechanical. Dean took a step back. "You're one of them, aren't you?" Grant smiled thinly. "One of them? I am them. Ray answered to me. Keller too. We built this place. And now you're going to help keep it running." Dean laughed, bitter and exhausted. "You kill my friends, frame me for murder, and now you want me to help you?" Grant raised his pistol. "Not want. Need. You're smart, McCarthy. You stabilized Wolston when no one else could. You turned chaos into control. You belong here." Dean stared at the weapon, then at the burning papers in his hand. "You think I built this place to survive? No, I built it to burn." Before Grant could react, Dean hurled the burning pages at him. Flames caught his sleeve, and Grant stumbled backward. Dean grabbed a metal ladle from the counter and swung hard, sending the pistol clattering across the tiles. The kitchen erupted in smoke and fire. The alarm bells screamed louder. Dean ran through the corridor, past terrified inmates and collapsing ceilings. The prison, Wolston itself, was coming down. As he reached the outer yard, he heard shouting behind him. Grant, limping, bloodied, still chasing. "You can't destroy the circle," he screamed. "We are the system." Dean turned, chest heaving, flames lighting up his face. "Then I guess the system dies with me." He lunged forward, tackling Grant into the mud. The two men wrestled, each blow echoing through the chaos until the sound of sirens grew deafening. And then a gunshot. The world went still. When the smoke cleared, guards swarmed the yard. They found Grant unconscious, his arm twisted beneath him, and beside him, Dean McCarthy, bleeding, but alive. He was taken away in cuffs, eyes still locked on the burning tower of Wolston. Weeks later, an inquiry was launched. Officials claimed a gas leak caused the explosion. No one spoke of the circle again, but whispers spread through the system about a man who took down Wolston from the inside. Some called him dangerous. Others called him a legend. And in the new prison they sent him to, far from Queensland, a guard found a note scratched into the metal bunk. "The circle breaks when the wolves eat each other." No one knew who wrote it, but every inmate who heard the story remembered one name, Dean McCarthy, the man who walked into Wolston prison a criminal and walked out a myth. If you thought Wolston was bad, wait till you hear what happens inside Grafton Prison. Subscribe now. The next story will chill you to your bones.